power, President Donald Trump has pardoned 1,500 January 6 defendants. Welcome to Tyrone Bowman Live. What's happening, everybody? I'm Tyrone Bowman. Let's get right down to it. According to CBS News, President Trump on Monday granted clemency to roughly 1,500 defendants who have been convicted of crimes on January 6, 2021, following through on his longtime promise to absolve those who participated in the attack on the U.S. Capitol of wrongdoing. The president's action comes on his first day back in the White House and just hours after he was sworn in for a second term. Mr. Trump has repeatedly sought to downplay the events of January 6th, when a mob of his supporters breached the Capitol in an effort to stop Congress from reaffirming former President Biden's victory over him in 2020. And the pardons further his efforts to recast the assault as a, quote, day of love, close quote, and January 6 defendants as, quote, political prisoners, end quote, and, quote, hostages, end quote. These are the hostages, approximately 1,500 for a full pardon, Mr. Trump said during his remarks from the Oval Office. This is a big one. The president said he hopes those who remain incarcerated will be released tonight. His clemency includes 6 commutations, he said. More than 1,600 people have been charged as a result of their alleged conduct on January 6th, and at least 1,100 have had their cases adjudicated and received sentences. According to the Justice Department, more than 170 people have been accused of using a deadly or dangerous weapon, such as a fire extinguisher or bear spray, against police officers, prosecutors have said. There are roughly 300 prosecutions that remain pending against defendants who have been charged. The Justice Department said earlier this month nearly 60% of those have been charged with assaulting, resisting, or impeding law enforcement or obstructing those officers during a civil disorder, which are felonies. Many January 6 defendants were charged with nonviolent misdemeanors, though some face more serious charges like conspiring to use force to resist the transfer of power. But Mr. Trump's actions appear to be sweeping. Among those expected to receive clemency is Enrique Tarrio, the former head of the far-right group the Proud Boys, who was serving a 22-year sentence after he was convicted in May 2023 of charges including seditious conspiracy. His lawyer Nayed Hassan told CBS News it's unclear whether he will receive a pardon or have his sentence commuted. Mr. Trump suggested after he was inaugurated that he would offer reprises to those convicted as a result of January 6, telling a crowd of supporters assembled at Emancipation Hall in the Capitol that they were going to see a lot of action of the J6 hostages. The pardons cap a remarkable sequence of events that has played out in the wake of the 2020 election, when Mr. Trump mounted a scheme to overturn the results to hold on to power for a second term, as allegedly by federal prosecutors and House investigators. That plot culminated in the January 6th attack. As investigators said, the president has spent weeks sowing doubt about the integrity of the 2020 election and urged his supporters in a speech outside the White House on January 6th to, quote, fight like hell and stop the steal, close quote. The Justice Department has said more than 140 police officers were assaulted during the riot at the Capitol. The losses suffered as a result of the riot, including damage to the building and grounds exceeding $2.8 million, according to the department. But 4 years after Mr. Trump allegedly attempted to subvert the transfer of power, he has returned to the White House after defeating former Vice President Kamala Harris. In one of her final acts as Vice President, she presided over the joint session this year that confirmed Mr. Trump's victory. With Mr. Trump's repeated promise to grant a reprieve for those charged in connection with the Capitol attack, several defendants sought to have court action in their cases delayed in the wake of the election, though unsuccessfully for some. Others have been allowed by the judges overseeing the cases to attend Mr. Trump's inauguration in Washington. The authority to issue pardons for federal offenses rests exclusively with the president under the Constitution, but presidents typically work with the Justice Department's pardon attorney to consider requests for clemency. It's unclear how Mr. Trump and his new administration decided who received pardons. Pam Bondi, the president's pick for Attorney General, was asked during a confirmation hearing last week whether she believes January 6 defendants who were convicted of assaulting law enforcement should be given clemency, and she said she will review each case and advise on a case-by-case basis if asked by the president to do so. I condemn any violence on a law enforcement officer in this country, she said. Mr. Trump's decision is likely to stir anger from police officers who were injured during the January 6th attack and testified before the House Select Committee that investigated the riot in 2022, as well as committee members themselves, some of whom are no longer in Congress. Meanwhile, judges on the Federal District Court in Washington, where the cases involving January 6th have been brought, have continued to resist efforts to lessen the severity of what transpired more than 4 years ago in the eyes of the public. No matter what ultimately becomes of the Capitol rioters' cases already concluded, and still presiding, the true story of what happened on January 6, 2021 will never change. Senior Judge Robert Lamberth, who was appointed by President Ronald Reagan, said during a December sentencing. Lamberth said that just as the president must make decisions on matters of clemency without interference from the coordinate branches, so too must our judiciary independently administer the laws and sentence convicted offenders. Mr. Trump has repeatedly attacked those who investigated the January 6th assault and threatened to punish his political opponents, including former Special Counsel Jack Smith and the lawmakers who were on the House Select Committee that investigated the attack. In anticipation of possible retribution by Mr. Trump, Biden preemptively pardoned members of the January 6th Select Committee and its staff, as well as Capitol and D.C. Metropolitan Police officers who testified before the panel during his final hours in office. I'm Tyrone Bowman. Never surrender, never quit.